steal my lunch? I hope you like haram food. I recently started to work in an office. Not very happy about it, as I prefer working from home, but it's only temporary, so I'm hanging there. Since I'm trying to save money, I take my own lunch instead of eating at one of the many restaurants near the office. Soon after I started, I noticed my food going missing from the break room. After digging a bit, I discovered who the culprit was. One of my coworker, let's call him M, decided it was okay to take my lunch without asking for almost a week. I had to put a stop to this, but since I had no hard evidence like a video of him eating my stuff, I decided to take justice in my own hands. You see, M is a Muslim and apparently very serious about it, to the point that he has to let everyone know about this at least once a day. Nothing wrong with being serious about your religion, mind you. But when everyone knows you as the Muslim guy, because that's the only thing you talk about, you may want to diversify your interests. To me, however, he's known as the lunch looter. Since it's my lunch after all, and I have absolutely no dietary prohibitions, I decided to prepare myself a delicious pork sandwich. Pepperoni, ham, smoked sausage, chorizo, bacon, pork leg, cochinita, and even some chicharron for good measure. Oh, and don't forget extra jalapenos. Normally, I don't like them, but I want this one to pack a punch. I call it the Squealing Supreme. Surely, any person who adheres to religious rules would be a fool to even go near my succulent sandwich, right? Well, seems like M is the type of person to grab food off the fridge without checking it first, which led to hilarious results. At some point before my lunch hour, the office was set off by bloody screams coming from the break room. When someone ran off to check, they found poor M crying about eating pork and saying that someone put non-halal meat in the fridge. This was my cue to get HR involved. This level of drama wouldn't go unnoticed anyway, and catching M eating my sandwich was all I needed to get them on my side. Sadly, the payoff wasn't great. He was let off with a warning, and his excuse for taking my lunch is that I always brought halal food, basically just chicken and vegetables, so he took it. It's not that he thought it was for him. He just said he targeted my stuff because I was the only one bringing clean food. He was still quite pissed, and in the last few days he's been giving me the death glare. Moral of the story, don't take people's food. Who knows? Maybe they enjoy the food your religion considers sinful. No one paid me back, so now I lie. I go to Dunkin' before work almost every morning. The other day, someone asked me to get them something, and apparently that'd lead to them telling everyone that I was going on a Dunkin' run. So I spent $30 on everyone's Dunkin'. I get to work and have to hound a few people down for money, and they say they will get me tomorrow, blah blah blah. And the people who did pay me didn't pay me back all the way. Their total was $4.25, and they would give me $4. At the end of the day, I only got back $14. So, I've been switching between getting Dunkin' for only my close friends who I know will pay me back while asking people if they want something and not coming back with it, but coming back with my own Dunkin'. Or straight up telling people that specific people ruined it for them, so I'm not going anymore. Someone called me petty for it, but I don't care. My 9-year-old's petty revenge. Today, I got a call from the school my 9-year-old attends asking to please come up to the school because my daughter was in trouble for vandalizing another child's property. This surprised me because my daughter is a bit of a goody two-shoes and never gets in trouble, so I dropped what I was doing and swung by the school to find my daughter sitting in the principal's office grinning ear to ear. I was ushered in to take a seat. The principal immediately launched into a tirade about how my daughter had deliberately broken another girl's necklace and how unacceptable it was. Once he was finished, I turned to my daughter to hear her side of the story. Last year, my daughter saved up her pocket money to buy best friend necklaces for her and this girl. I ordered them from Wish.com for her. This year, the friendship went belly up when I discovered this girl was trying to extort her friends, including my daughter, into buying her expensive items on a kid's game with threats. Backstabbing my daughter and threatening anyone who dared play with her at lunch, so she was completely isolated. My daughter cut off contact and has been rebuilding her friendship circle, and all was going well until this little girl started repeatedly demanding that my daughter give her the other half of the friendship necklace so she could give it to someone else. The fact we were the ones that bought the necklaces to begin with was apparently a minor irrelevant detail. My 18-year-old niece and nephew are very protective of their young cousins and were quite upset for her, so they decided to offer her the opportunity for therapeutic destruction. Last weekend, they got out their tools and helped my daughter shatter the charm into 7 or 8 pieces with a hammer, some pliers, and had a great time. My daughter put the pieces of the charm in her jewelry box as a reminder of what fake friends can do to you. Anyway, apparently this girl kept demanding the necklace every day, hassling her, so my daughter hatched a plan. She gathered up the pieces into a little bag, took them to school today to empty the bag in front of the girl, and told her she was welcome to the necklace as long as she likes jigsaw puzzles, but she will probably need some glue. Apparently the girl went red and stormed off to the teacher to say that my daughter had destroyed her necklace and my daughter was sent to the office. I couldn't keep a straight face and burst out laughing. You could see the vein in the principal's forehead pop out as he looked at me laughing. I pulled out my phone, showed him my purchase history to confirm that we bought the necklaces and my daughter is perfectly within her rights to destroy her own property if she so wishes. He finally dismissed us and my daughter skipped back to class laughing hysterically. My niece and nephew are quite proud and planning to take my daughter out for ice cream this weekend to celebrate her standing up for herself. Watching my housemate die inside. This happened in my second year of university in the UK circa 1998. 6 of us shared a house with an even split of boys and girls. John was my best mate and was very shy and had no confidence with girls. He got on really well with the girls we lived with, Sarah in particular. When we moved in, Sarah had a boyfriend who thankfully after a few months she broke up as he was a dick. After this, Sarah and John grew closer, and she would quite often sit and cuddle with him while watching TV, dance with him when we were out, and generally spend a lot of time with him. John was clueless about women and thought they were just besties, but it was clear to everyone they were into each other. The important point to the story is John was still a virgin. Our other male housemate Steve was the opposite of John. He was a player. He had a girlfriend from school who was a few hours away at another uni, so he'd regularly sleep with anyone that would have him. He also had a crush on Sarah and tried it on with her a few times and got rejected. Steve used to take the mickey out of John for being a virgin. At first it was every so often, and then when John and Sarah were getting closer he started to call him Virgin Boy in an attempt to belittle him. The rest of us told him to knock it off, but he persisted for a few weeks. Not long after we got back from Christmas break, a few of us were in the living room after uni and Steve walked in and asked me and Virgin Boy if we'd like to order pizza for dinner. Sarah walked in from the kitchen at that point, walked over to John, sat on his knee, kissed him, looked at Steve, and said, "You can't call him that anymore. We had a great time this morning, and he made me come several times. I doubt you've ever managed that with your tiny cock." The rest of us sat there trying to stifle laughter. Steve went bright red, mumbled something, and went in his room. Turned out Sarah had made a move on John that morning. They both admitted to being into each other and had slept together. Sarah snapped when she heard Virgin Boy and decided she'd had enough of Steve. John and Sarah are still together, married with 3 kids. They didn't honor their reservation, so. Few months ago, I volunteered to plan my ML's 60th birthday and my FIL's 64th birthday, which was a weekend in wine country. I had made a reservation for a group of 10 at a new upscale restaurant months beforehand. Because it was also a winery, we arrived 2 hours early and checked in with the restaurant to see if they could seat us earlier. Despite an empty restaurant, they said they couldn't, and that was no big deal. We understood they could be low-staffed, so we went and got some wine and hung out and listened to live music. Close to our reservation time, I got a text from the restaurant to be seated. It was beginning to rain. We walked over to the hostess. She informed us that because it was raining, and because our table was outdoors, that they would not be able to seat us tonight. As calmly as I could, I explained to them that I have had a reservation for months. I've been here for 2 hours, and I was not told that my reservation was for an outdoor table or subject to rain. There was no indoor-outdoor option. I explained to them that it was for a 60th and 64th birthday party. I asked if they could split us up between tables, and they just kept saying that there was nothing they could do, and that it wasn't their fault, because we can't control the weather. I snapped a little and said sharply, "Well, what you could have done was not reserve out a table to a large party that you could not guarantee." The manager just shrugged. We left, and because it was a Saturday at 6 p.m., there was no way we were getting a seat at another restaurant. I had to go to the grocery store and cook a full meal for 10 people. I emailed the manager to ask them if there was anything they could comp because our experience was so terrible. I got no response after a week, so I made multiple Gmail accounts and left what was a fairly new restaurant 10 different 1-star reviews. In the reviews I said that you should never book this restaurant if you have a large party, how they did not try to find us a table at another restaurant, how they had 2 hours to fix their error, that they booked out a table they could not guarantee, that they didn't move a table undercover, which there was plenty, provide any comps or otherwise make any attempt to fix their error. They ended up with a 2-star drop in their Google rating because of my reviews. I left one review for every person that did not get a seat. Several days after I had posted, they reached out offering to comp a meal for my in-laws if our group took the reviews down, which I refused. We're picking all the grapes. My parents rent a house on a 1/4 acre of land. The land with rows of grapes is not being rented to my parents, but the landlord lets us pick them and juice them every year. The only access to the grapes is through the land my parents rent. Before my parents moved in, this old lady, Maureen, used to pick the grapes with her family and juice them. As a side note, Maureen has her own grapes, but she likes to use our landlord's grapes too because previous tenants did not. Every fucking year, it's a battle to make Maureen wait to pick grapes so we can pick a share. The landlord has been clear that we get first dibs on the grapes because we're his actual tenants. We always leave her at least a row, 1 of 4. Every year, she tries to be a sneaky lil bitch and get the grapes. But this year was the worst. My mom told Maureen that she was going to pick the grapes this weekend. Well, this weekend came and went without being able to pick grapes. My mom's helper crew got sick. My dad was recovering from major surgery, and she couldn't find the time or energy. Maureen's crotchety old ass calls to inform my mom that she is coming tomorrow to pick all the grapes we didn't. My mom asked her to please wait a few more days as her husband, my dad, has cancer and her helpers were sick. Maureen's response, "That's too bad. You had your chance. My family is coming tomorrow, and we are picking the grapes." Of course, my poor mom loses it at this point and begins screaming, "Shame on you, Maureen. You call yourself a Christian." Maureen continues telling her she had her chance. So my mom came in and told me this story. I said, "Absolutely fucking not. We are staying up as late as needed to pick every single grape off the vines. Every single one. We both called as many friends as we could. The troops are being gathered. We now have about 10 people to help us pick the grapes. We will pick every single grape so that when stupid Maureen and her stupid family show up, there will not be one little fruit left on the vine. All-nighter for the grapes." Neighbors suddenly became silent at nights after unintentionally showing them the taste of their own medicine. So I was living in an apartment, having a neighbor on right and one on top. Both neighbors had kids that made a lot of noise during day and night. I didn't really have a problem with noises at day. They were kids, and it was understandable. But really, who the hell runs and screams up to 3 a.m.? So several times I wrote in the building WhatsApp group that please keep your children quiet at night as I and everyone else needs to sleep and wake up early. I got no answers, or if I did, it was their parents telling they are kids and they will try, but cannot promise anything. Fast forward to my birthday. One of my friends gave me this amazing sound bar, and when I got home, I was too excited to hear some music from it. It was like 12 a.m., and I really wasn't thinking about any revenge or something. Just wanted to try this new sound bar and didn't notice it's too late. I played my rock playlist with a high volume and meanwhile on my PC trying to figure out its features. At around 2:30 a.m. the same neighbor, top floor, came and knocked my door. It was then, before opening the door, that I realized what time is it. I opened the door and saw it's him trying to ask to keep it quiet. Before he starts speaking, I told sorry I didn't notice the time and turned it off. Didn't mention his kids or anything. He appreciated and went. From that day, none of those 2 neighbors' kids made any noise at night. Not a single day. Like their parents had all control over the kids to keep them quiet at night, but didn't feel necessary until they felt the other neighbors can also make midnight noises. Only if I knew this earlier, I would buy the sound bar way earlier. The mother-in-law bribe backfired. This is not my story. This was told to me by a woman I knew from work several years ago. She's a very sweet nurse. Nurse graduated from nursing school and decided with her friend to move to one of the cities that was listed as having the most eligible bachelors from some publication. She moves and starts dating her future husband. Future husband's mother is a viper and decides nurse is not good enough for her family. The happy couple eventually get engaged and future mother-in-law is having none of it. Tries for several months to break them up, tries to convince nurse to go back where she came from and simultaneously tries to gently convince her precious son that nurse may not be good for him. To add some more context to this situation, this ML is pretty nasty to nurse but hides it well to other people, always making sure she's super fake, sweet to everyone when others are around. Finally, wedding plans are set, so ML gets desperate. She gets nurse alone with a generous offer, leave fiancé, and never come back in exchange for $10,000. Note, this was almost 30 years ago, so I guess it was kind of a shitload of money for most. Nurse is so sick of this woman's shit and is incredibly insulted. However, she's intelligent and maintains her composure. Nurse accepts the offer. Nurse takes the money, does not leave, and gets married anyway. Nobody else knows about this. ML cannot say or do anything about it without exposing herself to her family as a horrible person. Nurse and husband are still happily married. Their kids are grown. Husband still has no idea this went down. ML has suffered silently for almost 30 years.